This program is brought to you in part by SalCal Real Estate Connections. Welcome to Race in Action Today. We're here today to bring you the action from the Berlin Fairgrounds to give you a 1-hour special presentation about the Plainville Stadium reunion. We're going to get a chance to meet some of the local legends in stock car racing history as they drove and raced on this quarter-mile oval they called Plainville Stadium. It was a hotbed for racing throughout New England for these special drivers and crew. Also, we're going to have guest speaker Gary Danko, who is a noted radio show host and motorsport announcer. I think you better find yourself a very comfortable chair and relax as we take a step back in time and talk to the people who raced at this historic racetrack and now are reliving all those great moments.
A lot of people have worked very, very hard putting this all together, like the gentleman to my right, former modified driver Don Moon, one of his crew members at that time, Dave Tracy. Big thank you to the Berlin Lions Club and the Nutmeg Kart Club, Manafort Brothers, and the list goes on and on. But right now, we are just about ready to start. Why don't we start with a driver? He had 5 modified champions and many victories at the Plainville Stadium. How about a big round of applause for 5-time champion Dave Alkis? I want to thank Dave. He was on the radio show the other night. We had a great time in the Waterbury studio. Dave? He says Don's got the cast on the wrong arm. How many were big Dave Alkis fans out there? Okay. Yeah, I remember Dave in the Roland Sear number 54 car, and whether it was the Coupe or the Vega, Dave could get the job done. The presentation now going to be made from Don Moon to Dave Alkis, and Dave will be over at the autograph table once we get done with the presentation. Now, let's bring up the gentleman. Dave, why don't you stay right up here, because we're going to bring up the gentleman that owns your race car, Roland Sear. Roland, work your way up. This was the gentleman that fine-tuned that race car every week, and we all know the success that they had. And once again, Roland was on a radio show the other night. And Roland, back then, a lot of hard work. Everything was done right in your race shop. Talk to us about that.
Well, we did everything we could with what money we had. Everyone thought I was a millionaire, and they still do, I guess. But no, we got a lot of our stuff on the outside from different junkyards. I had a couple friends that were in with General Motors, so I could get a few things, and that's what we kept on doing.
And week in and week out, we'd see that 54 in Victory Lane, and people can see the pictures over there in the other building. They can pick those up later.
Right. We had a blast. I miss it.
How about a big round of applause for the combination, Roland Sear owner and 5-time modified champion Dave Alkis. So while we're talking about the Alkises, we're going to ask Roland and Dave if they can work their way off stage. They can work their way over to the autograph session table at this time. And let's bring up another Alkis. He drove the 89 car, and he drove the number 16 car, Fred Alkis. And of course, yes, he's got a fire suit on because he's all ready to get in that car a little bit later on. Really quick question for you, Freddie. Fond memory of Plainville Stadium?
Oh, God, they're all fond memories. Ever since I was a kid, climbing over the fence to try to sneak into the pits, till today, it's fond memories. You know, unbelievable.
And as I mentioned earlier, if the fans have some questions for you guys later, we're going to be able to do that for them.
Oh, absolutely. They can ask anything they want. We'll be more than happy to answer them.
Very good. Freddie Alkis up on stage with us. Now, how many were Jap Membrino fans out there? Okay. Well, we all remember that purple gremlin, the 00. Well, that driver's here with us today, Tony Jap Membrino. Jeff, we know you had a lot of fans out there.
Did you hear all that booing? They're still booing me.
You know what they say? If they're cheering for you, that's great. If they're booing for you, that's great. When they're doing nothing, that's when you need to start to work.
Boy, you ain't kidding. I don't know. You don't know how to figure these people out, you know? They don't like winners, they don't like losers. I thought that was nailed on. Just down moving.
Let's talk about a quick race that comes to mind right off the bat. You had a lot of success over at Plainville Stadium, but one race that comes to mind.
The one when I choked on a cigar.
Okay, explain that story.
I was going for the lead. My nephew, Gary, I went to the outside, he put me out, I went up over his wheel, and I had a little cigar in my mouth, okay? When I come down, I chewed it and I choked on it, I ended up down the third and fourth turn. They didn't know what happened to me. I was in there choking. That was a good one.
Okay, that's just one of many stories that Tony Jap Membrino has to talk about, and later on we're going to let you, the fan, ask some questions as well. Jap Membrino, the driver of the 00. Glad to see him. Glad to see him here. Yes, he does, Jap. Another driver, he drove many different race cars at Plainville Stadium. Don Spizzano is here with us today. Don, come on up. Of course, the $sign, he's got that right on his shirt there. What was so special about the $sign?
It went fast.
How fast did it go?
Enough to win.
Okay, talk about some of the competition that you raced against at Plainville Stadium.
I teamed up for a team race. We won.
Okay. And there again, back then, you know, you guys went out, went to junkyards, you got your frames. Engines were built right in-house, not like today where you go out and you get your cars from a chassis manufacturer and you get your engine all built and you put it all together. It was a lot of hard work back then.
Absolutely. Most of our parts came from Peckett's Junkyard.
Okay.
Then again, if you needed anything, you can go to any garage in town, and any one of the racers would help you out.
Okay. Not that it's not hard work today for these teams, but like I said, pretty much everything is store bought. You go out and you get it, and you assemble it on the race car. You guys, like I said, went to junkyards. You get your body, your chassis, and engine parts.
Absolutely. Back then, we actually made money. You don't make money today.
You ain't just a kid. That's a subject for another time. Don Spizzano, the $sign, and many race cars that he ran over at the Plainville Stadium. The next driver, I'm sure you remember, his nickname was Baggy. Baggy, come on up. Peter, glad to have you here today. You ran in the novice division and in the modified division. Talk about some of those car numbers that you raced.
Novice, I had the 21. I had the 1. I drove Johnny Manafort's car, the 76X, before he was old enough to drive. And then I built a modified after that, the 9X. And the unique part about it was nobody else could get in the car because it was built for me.
Okay. And talk briefly about Joe Tinty that owned Plainville Stadium. What do you remember about Joe Tinty?
He loved his horse. He liked to show off all the time. And other than that, his son accused us for killing his horse because they bought hay from us at one time, but I don't think so.
All right, big round of applause for Peter Bagdana Jr., known as Baggy.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Another driver that had a lot of success, whether it was at Plainville Stadium, West Haven Speedway, Riverside Park Speedway, and the list goes on and on. Many victories to his credit, many championships. He was known as Wild Billy Greco. Come on up, Billy. Of course, he drove the Sharkies number 44 car. He also drove his own number 43 car, and the list goes on and on. As I mentioned, the success that this gentleman had. Billy joined me on the radio show the other night. We had a great time talking about old times, but let's talk Plainville Stadium when you would roll in there with the 44 car. Talk about that.
Well, just one particular night I can remember, you know. A lot of things happened there and everything. And if there was a fight or something, like Jap was always in them, but I was in the other ones, you know, when he wasn't there. And one night we were racing, and Sharkey, I was driving for Sharkey, George Lombardo came over and he said, "This car is not running." That's Lombardo. Because Sharkey put all these spikes on the Nerf bar. Because he used to come up on the outside of me and shut me down all the time. So Sharkey said, "We'll fix him." He welded those things on it. They made us cut the Nerf bars off.
Okay. Now, you said you'd get into some scuffles. Jap would get into some scuffles. Did you and Jap ever have any scuffles?
No, we never did. No, I mean, we had our differences, you know, but never face to face, you know.
How would you describe Plainville Stadium for some of the people that are here with us today that never went to Plainville, and most did? How would you describe, how was it racing that track? It was a quarter mile.
It was a quarter mile, and it was flat. And it was, you know, hard to get through the corners and everything. Because you had, you know, more power than the car would handle, really. I mean, the track would handle. And it was a beautiful track, though. I loved it. I wish it was still there.
And what about when you go down the back straightaway? Right behind the racetrack, going down between turns 3 and 4, was the movie theater. You remember some of the movies?
I don't remember some of the movies, but you could see half of the, you know, the feature. Every time you came around, you'd see the rest of the movie.
Okay. How about a big round of applause? Wild Billy Greco, who drove the Guardiosi number 44 car, and we all know he had success not only at Plainville, but other racetracks as well. As right now, we're going to work our way down as we're getting set to bring some of the other drivers up. And our next gentleman that is here with us today, Dave Sella. And Dave, we're going to get you on stage here to present you your plaque. Talk about some of the cars that you drove there.
Well, it was a 57 Chevy Pleasure Car Division, and it was kind of junky. We didn't have a lot of money, but we never did really well. But it was a start. I was young, and we went on to Riverside Park. We were the 1985 champion at Riverside in the Street Stock Division. But I just want to, speaking of the movies, as you mentioned, one big thing I remember, I say going down the back stretch, you're looking at the screen, and the hotter the movie, the more wrecks there were that night. That much I do remember. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not. But also, you know, the little parties in the parking lot after it was over, a couple cold beers, and we have a lot of fond memories. And thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Dave Selleck joining us here today for the 3rd annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion. And why don't you guys just go right back up on stage there? Come on, yeah, go right up there so we can get a good shot of you guys up there. And I'm just going to work my way back up on the stage here as we get set to bring some of the other drivers and owners here. Then we're going to do the autograph session, which is going to be coming up in just a couple of minutes. And we got everything all set up here, Don? And now we're ready for our next driver that I remember racing at Plainville Stadium. He ran over at Stafford Motor Speedway, Riverside Park Speedway. How about a big round of applause for Sonny O'Sullivan that is here with us today. Sonny, you're back from Florida?
Yeah, I got in Thursday. I wouldn't miss this event, especially after Skip passing away last year. This is a real good opportunity to see our fans and drivers from the past, and I appreciate all of the work that you guys did to make this event a better event every year, and I can't wait till next year. And this is really good.
Yeah, it's getting better and better. Of course, the 3rd annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion. Talk about a memory of Plainville Stadium. I know there's many, but the one that comes to mind.
It's probably when I flipped over my first car. back in those days, you didn't wear driver's suits or anything. I had a 55 Chevrolet with a V8. You could only have V8 if you had a coil-sprung car, because that was a big disadvantage to have a coil-sprung car. And I had a beer keg for a gas tank. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I had a electrical conduit roll cage in the car, which was pretty common to, at the time, made the car real light, went like a rocket down the straightaway. Didn't go through the turns too well, but I got hit in the right rear, which broke the axle because there was no quick changes or anything at the time. And the car got on the side, somebody hit it underneath, and it rolled down the front straightaway several times. And of course, that beer keg went sailing out the window, one window, I'm not sure exactly which, and that electrical conduit caved down to the dashboard. Fortunately, at the time, I had been reading books about sprint cars and so forth, and I ducked down, otherwise I probably would have got killed then. But there was a little opening in the passenger window. Unfortunately, I didn't weigh 200 pounds at the time, and I made it out the opening. But I got out of the car, and the ambulances and everybody came over. One of the biggest mistakes I made was I got out of the car right away. Well, I was up front in the pack, and the cars were still coming, so fortunately I didn't get run over and get killed that way. And I got out of the car, and I was all right. I didn't have no problems. And Bob Michalak, who was my buddy and helped towed the car there that particular night, he came running around over, and the ambulance driver was going to take him away instead of me because he thought he was driving the car. No fire suits or anything.
And how about this guy to my right, Don Moody? Did you ever race against this guy?
I not only raced with him, I helped work on his race car. He was a very good friend of mine, and he still is. And I've never had a crossword with this man here. And I love him and his wife. They're really good people.
Well, Sonny, glad that you can make it up for the 3rd annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion. And you're still doing some racing, aren't you?
Yeah, I run a sprint car, a dwarf car, and a go-kart. So I kind of like these go-karts here. So this year I actually bought one. I'm having a good time with that also.
We'll look for you a little bit later on during the match race.
I hope so, yeah.
Hey, how about a big round of applause for Sonny O'Sullivan? Okay, I guess that's for the drivers and others. Oh, Johnny Lane. Johnny, another driver that ran over Plainville Stadium. Didn't see him hiding over in there. He's got some photos with him. And Johnny Lane, yes, I got you, Mr. Gaudiosi. I see you over there. Which everybody was supposed to be lined up very nice so I could see everybody instead of hiding over there. But how many remember Johnny Lane racing over at Plainville Stadium? He's got a lot of the photos. He's all ready for the autograph session. Johnny, great to see you here. You and I talked earlier. Talk about some of those divisions that you raced in.
Well, I started out in West Haven in the street stock division, and when West Haven closed up, I went to Plainville Stadium in, I think it was about 66. And then I bought a modified car, and I ran Plainville until 73 when I went to Danbury. And I still run once in a while up the Lebanon Valley Speedway. I tell people it's the only sport that an old guy can compete with a young guy. So I still have fun racing once in a while.
Well, Johnny, great to see you here. The autograph session is going to take place just after 1 o'clock. Great to see you here, and appreciate your participation in the 3rd annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion.
Thank you very much. Lord willing, to hope to see everybody here next year.
Okay, big round of applause, Johnny Lane. Now, another driver that raced over at Plainville Stadium, and to this day, he still races. He even drove in Indianapolis, and the list goes on and on of the success that this next driver had. How about a big round of applause for Denny Zimmerman that is here today. Denny's going to work his way up on stage. We still got Ronnie Wyckoff, Ray Miller is here with us, Billy Harmon, Danny Gaudiosi is also here as well. Denny, come on right over here. Don, you get over that way there. We're going to have a little interview here with Denny. Denny, let's talk about after Plainville Stadium, where did your racing career take you?
Well, from stock cars, it went to midgets and sprint cars, and then Indianapolis. And I ran Indianapolis in 1971, was the Rookie of the Year there. Ran again in 72. But it took 2 years to get there. I got seat time in 69 and 70. And incidentally, Jimmy Jorgensen's car was the car that I used to pass my driver's test at Indianapolis. Jimmy also left stock cars and went into Indy cars. And I have to say, I really enjoy myself here. This is like a high school reunion, only better.
And as I mentioned, you're still racing.
Yeah, Skip Batsack has got a couple of midgets. Actually, he's got 4 of them. And he called me up a couple of years ago and said, do you think you'd like to drive a race car again? And it took about 30 seconds, and I said, of course I would. So I drive his midget there.
All right. Well, Benny, a little bit later on, autograph session is going to take place. We're going to have some questions from the fans, and we'll walk down the line and talk to some more of the drivers a little bit later on. Great seeing you here.
Yeah, I have to make sure that Don reminds me when his reunion is over there at his house, so I can make that one this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's always a good Christmas party at Don Moon's house for the Christmas party. Always a great time. Denny Zimmerman, a big round of applause for Denny. Another driver, he drove the number 1 car. He also drove his own race cars as well. I want to say it was Spud's number 1 car that he drove there, that blue machine. Bob Michalak is here. Come on up, Bob. See, you're supposed to be in line with everybody. I'm not supposed to be a mind reader out there. No. Why is that?
I never want to feature.
It doesn't matter. It does not matter. You were a big part of Plainville Stadium. People remember you and the race cars that you drove there. Talk about some of those race cars.
Well, I had the Red X in high school. I left like senior prom to race. Then I came back with the car in the parking lot, and everybody left the senior prom to go out in the parking lot and hang around. And then I had the Red X Coupe that I built, forceful. I had the 78 red, white, and blue coach. They spend more time in the wall than they did on the track. And then I drove Spud's car, drove the Flying Zero, many cars. And now I go to Waterford every Saturday, and once in a while I get in a little mini stock down there.
Okay, big round of applause for Bob Michalak. Bob will talk to you a little bit later on. Another driver ran Plainville Stadium, Riverside Park Speedway, Stafford, and the list goes on. He drove many race cars. The percent sign he drove, the Zenobia Brothers percent sign, Ronnie Wyckoff, here with us today. Of course, Ronnie went on to Riverside Park Speedway. He drove the Zarnicki Brothers number 20. He drove the Nils Lindstedt number 10 car. And Ronnie's got the nice new Plainville Stadium reunion hat on. Let's talk about some memories at Plainville.
Oh, a lot of good times, that's for sure.
Let's talk about the percent sign that you drove for the Zenobia Brothers. What was that car like?
That car was dynamite. Ricky Sutherland owned the car, and somebody else was driving it. He had another guy driving it, and he asked me to try the car out. You know, and I tried it, and I said, man, this thing is dynamite. The only thing wrong was it had a bad steering box in it. And he put that in it. He put a new steering box in it. And then he ended up selling the car to Billy Zenobia. Billy didn't know what he was doing. I said, better get that car to the track. You can make some serious money with it. And that's how we ended up going.
Okay. Ronnie, and then, of course, you went to Riverside Park Speedway. You won some Riverside 500s with different drivers. You won, I believe, 3 with Bob Polverari up at Riverside Park Speedway. So you had, all in all, your racing career, you had a darn good career.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun. You know, we raced the open shows back in them days. You had them at Westboro, Seacong, and places like that. Even, you know, weekly ones too. You know, so we'd go around to the different places and stuff like that when I was driving for Billy Zenobia in a percent sign car. But I mean, we had our fun. You know, and it wasn't expensive like it is today nowadays. My goodness, you know.
Well, Ronnie, great seeing you here. We're going to talk to you a little bit later on during the autograph session. And congratulations, Ronnie. And once again, always a pleasure seeing you. Ronnie Wyckoff joining us here today for the 3rd annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion. And Don, the next driver we're going to get up here, we all know that the Sharkies 44 had a lot of success over at Plainville Stadium. Why don't we bring up that next driver? Mr. Guardiosi is here with us today. How about a big round of applause? Danny Guardiosi Jr., always a pleasure to see you. What was so good about that 44 car at Plainville?
Sharky, in a word. Yeah, Sharky built, I mean, everybody knows his cars are, his cars were always the car to beat. Anytime he showed up at the track and he saw that pink and white 44, watch out, because they were definitely, he had the best drivers still. Billy Greco, Gene Bergen, his brother, my dad, so they were always great cars.
What do you remember about the man that owned Plainville Stadium, Joe Tinty?
I remember him coming out on the horse and doing his thing every year with Sugarfoot. And, everybody kind of laughing and stuff at him. But Joe was a good guy, Things got a little out of control. He tried to bring things back. He warned everybody. He told everybody, at that last year, he says, if people don't behave, I'm going to shut this place down. And, there's a lot of stuff happening those last few years.
Danny, you look at racing today compared to then. Talk about that.
As far as, I don't know, it was just a lot more fun, I think, years ago, Everybody built their own stuff now. Of course, everybody buys their stuff, and, money brings you to the front. Years ago, it was a lot more talent in the building aspect as well as the driving. So it was, to me, it was a better time. People had more fun. They weren't as stressed out, And after the races, everybody got together. It was a good time. I think compared to today, it was a much better time in racing.
All right, Danny Guardiosi Jr., as the B is joining us up here on stage as well. Danny, always great to see you, and we'll talk to you a little bit later on.
Okay, thank you.
Danny Guardiosi Jr. joining us here this afternoon. Our next driver, he ran a full season back in the 60s at Plainville Stadium. Then his racing career would take him to other racetracks where he would have a lot of success. Please welcome Ray Miller. Of course, Ray ran at Riverside Park Speedway, Stafford Motor Speedway, and the list goes on and on of tracks that he raced at. But we're going to talk about Plainville Stadium with you. Take us back to the year you ran that full-time season.
Well, it was my rookie year. I had never driven before and went to Plainville and befriended Jap, parked next to me. Nobody else would park next to Jap, so I parked next to him, not knowing him. But that was a good year for learning. But my real experience at Plainville was one of the 100-lap open shows. We used to go down there on Wednesday nights, and I was down on this particular night, and everybody was there. Charlie J., I think Kenny Bouchard was there, and Davey Alkus was leading. It was a restart. I come out of the fourth turn, on the green flag, poked Davey, put him around. Billy Dunn sent me home. I was all done. And that was a night that Freddie Elkus won the $1,000, went home with $1,000. His wife didn't even believe he won the $1,000 till he showed it to her. So I was a hero with Freddie and a bum with Davey, and that was a good night.
Okay, Ray, always great seeing you here. Many stories we're going to talk about a little bit later on as the autograph session will be taking place. We just got a handful of drivers to go through that are here. Another driver that I see out in the crowd there, of course, my dad also liked this driver as well. He was a big Lou Colangelo fan, but he also liked this driver. He drove the Ferroni number 43, Elton Hill, who is here with us. Elton, come on up, Elton. I see you over there. Elton Hill also drove the 222, that red and white and blue Pinto. He had a lot of success at Plainville Stadium. Elton, always a pleasure. I was actually Elton's paper boy. I'm from Sulington, Elton's from Sulington, and we'd always talk about racing together. But talk about that Ferroni number 43 car.
He was always late with that paper, too.
Well, that's because they would get to my house late. Of course, I delivered the New Britain Herald back in the days. But talk about that white coupe, the number 43.
Well, it was Ferroni's car, and they were nice enough to let me drive it over there, and we had a fun time on Saturday nights.
And then what about that Pinto you drove, the 222?
That was a 222.
Was it a fast race car?
Yes, it was fast.
and talk about a memorable moment at Plainville Stadium.
Memorable moment. There was so many of them. I heard Ray say something about a $1,000 race. I think we won the first one they ever had there. That was memorable in my pocket, and there was a lot of them, even the novice division. I got an old friend out there that I see once a year. He drove at Plainville Stadium, too. Elliott Beveridge.
That's right, Elliott. Yeah, I remember he drove the number 41 car and several race cars. Yes, Don?
Ask him about his future about NASCAR. When he went through NASCAR. Malta Speedway went racing on beautiful Rome. We ran around with the whole gang. We went racing all over.
A great time. It was fun. All the way down to South Carolina, Bowling Green, and up to Maine. And we had a lot of fun. We drove as a crew too. Even Denny. We went with Denny and Eddie Flemke, Sr. And we had a lot of fun. And Moody came along with us too.
Well, it's always a pleasure seeing you here. We'll talk to you a little bit later on during the autograph session.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ellen Hill joining us here today. Many different racetracks. Remember this name? Billy Harmon, here with us today. Billy, of course, he ran over Waterford Speedboat. He did run Plainville. Billy, always a pleasure to see you. Up from Florida, you're going to be going back soon to Florida?
I hope so. If things go right, we'll be going back in another month or two.
Okay. I want to talk about that hard competition at Plainville Stadium. Who was your fierce competitor when you'd run there?
Elton Hill, Don Moon, Eddie Flemke, Ray Miller. We had a lot of good competition.
How about the open comp shows that were on Wednesday night?
I won a 100-lapper Wednesday night, and Jack Membrino was the guy I ended up beating. He was a tough competitor. Tony Martino. I mean...
And the list goes on and on, right?
A lot of great drivers out of Plainville. It's the best.
Billy, always a pleasure seeing you here, and we're going to get a chance to talk to you a little bit later on.
Thank you very much.
Billy Harmon joining us here today for the 3rd Annual Plainville Stadium Racing Union. How about a big round of applause for him? This next gentleman, he owned race cars that ran over at Plainville Stadium. Actually, 2 of the cars are here today, the original cars. The original car that Reggie Ruggiero drove, that number 59 coupe, and he also owned the number 95 car, that orange Pinto that Dave Germano drove. I know Dave very well. Back in the day when I was in high school, Dave was, at that time, my industrial arts teacher. But the man that owned those cars and many race cars, Eddie Mack, here with us today. Come on up, Eddie. If you went to Plainville Stadium and you heard that name, Eddie Mack, he had good race cars. As I mentioned, 2 of them are here with us today. Eddie, those cars are still looking good. Good to see you.
The original, the last day we raced up to Plainville. In fact, if you look at the 95, you'll see the old Speedy Dry inside yet. We never vacuumed that out.
What about, I remember there was, I remember when Dave drove that number 95 car, the orange Pinto. But what about you had a coach that was a reddish-orange coach?
We're looking at it now. We're trying to get it. We know where it is. We're looking at Michael Seal Miller. That's when I got the rear springs like Frankie front end. And that was a running sucker.
What was it like being a car owner back in the day at Plainville Stadium?
Oh, right. That was beautiful. It was very inexpensive. Compared to today, forget it. That's this guy. He knows. He spends money.
What do you think of the car owners of today and the competitors of today and this money that they're spending? Your thoughts?
You know what? I think they're more out to race, and they don't party like we used to. After the race, we just stop in the parking lot, have our beer and whatever. And whatever went on the track, we forgot about it. No, I know it.
You guys never drank?
Never drank.
Poured it in. All right. Well, Eddie, we're going to have a chance to talk to you a little bit later on. Always great to seeing you here. And the original cars, 2 of the original cars that you had over at Plainville Stadium.
That's the 2 original ones. And we got 1 more we're looking for. We'll get that yet.
All right. Eddie Mack, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have him here. There was a car at Plainville Stadium. It was number 25. George Hotchkiss was the driver. He's here with us today. A big round of applause for George. Once again, in a few minutes, we're going to get the autograph session going. George, welcome to the 30th Annual Plainville Stadium reunion. Let's go back to your days at Plainville Stadium. What was it like for you?
It was great. It was just fun. It was something, you build a car in the backyard and go, and had a great time.
What was the key to some of the success for you at Plainville Stadium? Was it the engine or the chassis?
Well, I had a good engine. Brownie, a guy named Brownie built the engines, and that was the key to it.
Okay.
Both cars,
All right, George, we're going to get a chance to see you a little bit later on. George Hotchkiss here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for him. The next driver, he's a member of the New England Auto Racers Hall of Fame, like several that are here today, Billy Harmon, and the list goes on and on. But this next driver had a lot of success in different cars that he drove. The one that stands out that I've seen a lot of pictures of was the XD2. George Lombardo here with us today. Come on up, George. Don't be shy. Come on right up here. George drove many race cars in his career. And if you ever see that XD2, it was a sharp-looking race car. George, welcome.
How you doing?
Doing very well. Let's talk about the one particular car I just mentioned, the XD2.
Yeah.
What was so special about it?
I get the owner.
Oh, it was the owner. Yeah, but that car, from what I understand, was a fast race car. Why?
Very, very good, yeah. That's why I drove it, because it was fast.
Because it was fast. Now, did you spend a lot of time back at the race shop working on those cars as well?
Not too much.
Not too much. You would just show up at the racetrack, get in the car, and drive it.
And go home.
And then go home. But you took a lot of money home, though, right?
Yes, I did.
All right. How about a big round of applause? George Lombardo here with us today. And you'll have a chance to talk to him coming up a little bit later on. Next driver drove different race cars. I remember he drove, it was a Gremlin number 41 car, and the list goes on of different cars that he drove. Elliott Beveridge here with us today. I know he's here. Well, we'll catch up with him. Elliott is still, he's probably out talking to the many fans that he had. Another driver that had success at different racetracks he went to, and I know I saw him earlier, and I know he has to leave to head down to Waterford Speedbowl. Johnny Manafort, if you're still with us, if you'd work your way up to the stage. Johnny Manafort drove at Plainville Stadium. And Don, you can tell us some stories about John and Frankie Manafort.
Well, one night we were running a novice race, and I was trying to go to the lead, and Frankie was leading, and Frankie got in a mix-up, and Johnny hit him and broke his leg, and I won the show. That was one incident, but there was a lot going on at Plainville Stadium coming up through that traffic. That's what made us modified drivers.
That's right. And Johnny drove, what was it, the 76X?
Right. He drove the 76X. He did a real excellent job with it. And he was competition with his cousin, Frankie Manafort. And we all raced together, and we all tried to get to the lead.
Okay. And I believe Johnny must have already left. I know he had to get down to the Waterford Speedbowl. I believe he has a relative that runs in the Legends division down there. I believe Dana DiMatteo, who actually had a great 2011 season in the Legends division. So we'll make sure that Johnny Manafort gets his plaque. The next driver, he drove car number 22. And, of course, drove at Plainville. He drove at many different racetracks. Nick Nickerson here with us today. Come on up, Nick. Yep, the number 22 car. As a matter of fact, if you look at Phil Hoyt's photos, you'll see that number 22 car. Nick, welcome to the third annual Plainville Stadium reunion, but you also ran Danbury as well. And you also ran over at Danbury as well?
No, I never ran at Danbury. I just built cars there.
Okay, you built cars there, but your main home when you raced was at Plainville Stadium.
Plainville and And West Haven.
And you ran at West Haven. How about the Plainville Stadium? That quarter-mile track, was it a tricky track?
Plainville, no. Plainville wasn't tricky, but you had to have the car to run there.
And if one driver came to mind that was very hard to beat there, what name would that be when you were racing there?
Standing next to me.
Don Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, always had good race cars, sharp-looking race cars, no question about it.
Yes. You want to hear?
Yeah, we want to quickly tell us how you won the race.
I'll tell you a quick story. We were running, I forget how long the race was, 100-lap race, and I managed to get up to second, and Don Moon was in front of me, right? We kind of ran, kind of nip and tuck there for a while, and Don was a lot faster than me, and I could see he was just taking it easy, right? And all of a sudden he slowed down and pulled to the infield, right? Let me go on and win the race. So I walked over to him later and I said, what happened? He says, damn toggle switch quit.
I was with Grove in the car. I never forgot that, so I went out and bought a real good one.
Okay. Many stories to be told here today. Glad to have you here, Nick Nickerson.
Okay. Thank you.
Nick Nickerson here with us today. Now, there's probably some other drivers that kind of strolled in late that are here. We'll make sure that they get their plaques coming up a little bit later on. Other drivers that are here with us today that ran or were you a car owner, someone we missed out there that was not in line, and, well, oh, that's right, a gentleman that I talked to earlier. He ran demolition derby cars, and he ran the novice division over there at Plainville. Beetle Ferroni, I know you're out here. Where are you? There you are. Beetle Ferroni, we talked to him earlier and talked about those demolition derbies. And Beetle, you mentioned the driver's name that you learned a lot from. Who was that?
Don Mctavish.
Why?
He taught me everything I knew about demo cars when I used to hang around with him up in New York State. And then Don had an unfortunate accident in Daytona, and I went on and remembered everything he told me and did everything he told me, and I was very successful.
What was it like when you ran in the novice division at Plainville?
It was a blast. Against Ronnie Rocco, my younger brother. There were so many of us that were competitive. We all built cars, and we took from each other. We stole from each other just to go racing at Plainville.
And your brother JoJo's here today?
Yeah, he's here somewhere. My two sisters are here. We support the old timers.
And you got a chance to go to races today. Talk about what you back in the day of Plainville Stadium versus today.
It's a big difference. I mean, I look at the cars today, and then I looked at the old coupe that's inside Davy's building over there. I says, we drove cars like this, and the seat belts, the seat just held on with a little spot of weld. No fire suits. We went like this. Pair of shoes, short sleeve shirts, whatever you desire to wear. And now today it's all fire suit, neck bracers, Hans device. It's a big difference.
Well, Beetle, glad that you could be here. The Ferroni family was a big part of Plainville Stadium, and glad that you could be here with us today as well.
Thank you.
Big round of applause for Beetle Ferroni. And this next driver, she ran in the powder puffs at Plainville Stadium. Helen Ferroni is here with us. Come on up, Helen. Once again, the autograph session in just a couple of minutes. To this day, they still have powder puff races over at Waterford Speedboat and other racetracks as well. Helen, what was so special about the powder puff racing back then?
It was a lot of fun beating the other women.
How many competitors would you get in the powder puffs?
Oh, I'd say about 12.
Okay, and how many laps were they back then?
10 or 15. 10 or 15 laps.
And whose car did you race?
I raced Dave Alkis's brother George's. I also raced the 28. but George's was the first race that he ever had won a championship. I mean, a winning race, and I raced it for him.
Okay. Well, Helen, glad that you could be here today. And how about a big round of applause for Helen Ferroni, big winner in the Powder Puffs over at Plainville Stadium. Now, before I let you go, the autograph session is going to start. This gentleman to my right, Don Moon. How about a big round of applause for Don Moon? He ran Plainville Stadium. He ran many racetracks. He had beautiful race cars. He had fast race cars as well. He was very instrumental, along with several others, getting this Plainville Stadium reunion together. And Don, let's go back to some memories you had at Plainville Stadium.
Well, I remember my first race when I was 15 and a half years old. I lied for my age. And I was running with Maxie Cabello. And we got all the way up to the lead, and I was leading it. I put my aunt's tires on from her Buick. They were Uniroyals, they're no good. And the tire went flat the last lap, and they beat me by 2 inches. I never forgot that day. Then after that, I had to learn how to drive and run with the rest of the guys, because they were tough to beat. A lot of drivers.
And one quick story, and most of you know this story if you raced at Plainville Stadium. Some of you may not know the story, but in 1975, Don Moon broke his arm, and he had Stan Greger drive the car for one race, and then you got Reggie Ruggiero to drive the car. Take us through that year, 1975, when Reg got in the car.
Well, that was a tough time for me, because the car was running. I just got through winning a feature, and the following week I fell down, broke my arm down these stairs, and I almost landed in an engine block, and I couldn't drive, so my ex-father-in-law says, "You can't let that car sit there." I said, "Why not? I'll wait till I get better, then I'll drive it." He said, "No, you got to put some in it." So I looked all around the pit, and I found Reggie Ruggiero, and we put him in the car. And he did very well, but he had to learn how to drive that car because he bent all four wheels the first time out. And then he went on to give me 10 features at Plainville. He was very good competition. He wore my car out and my tires.
Yes, he did, and that's, of course, where Mario Fiore, longtime modified car owner, would come down with his car to run those open shows, and that's where Mario spotted the talent that Reggie had in your race car, and then the next year, Ruggiero was driving the number 44 car.
But if you get Mary up here, he had asked me for permission to let Reggie drive his car because he thought that maybe he was taking him away from me.
All right, many stories to be told here today. And ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause once again, Don Moon, the driver of the number 9 car. And we also have, we've got some other drivers and car owners that have just lined up here. And Don, you know these next two guys very well. Tell us about them.
Well, they drove very well. His brother, his cousin rather, he drove, this was it 111. He drove Plainville, and he drove the Goober Scheidel. And he drove Lebanon Valley, and he did very well.
And we're going to bring them up here right now, and they are. Yeah. Come on right up here. And joining us, got his Plainville Stadium reunion hat, Art Scheidel. Of course, Goober, I remember when he drove on dirt as well and did very, very well. But let's talk about Plainville.
That's how I got started with Goober. And we built a novice car, and they wouldn't let him drive it because he was driving modified, so I got in. And I drove the novice, then I had modified for a while, number 56. I had a Grand National car. I drove Riverside in Westboro. But one of my best things is with the modified car, when I first started racing it, it handled fair, but not good. And one of the heat races, Captain Greco was in the race with me. And after the heat race, he came over to me and he said, he said, "You got a pretty good car here." He said, "But you ought to try doing this and that, and moving things around a little bit." So I did what he suggested, and I ran the Consi, and it was better. So he come back again and said, he said, "I think if you do this a little bit," he said, "try this next week." Well, I did what he said on the way home, and when I came back the following week, I started 5th or 6th in the heat race, and I almost won. Me and another driver were half a pack ahead, and the other driver thought that he could win better than me, so on the last lap he spun me out. But I appreciated what Jack did, and he come back several times and gave suggestions on how to handle the car. I really appreciate that, and I think that's the type of driver that Jack always was. He always helped people.
Well, Art, certainly glad that you could be here for the 3rd Annual Plainville Stadium Racing Reunion and enjoy that plaque. And I know you're going to be a part of the autograph session coming up. Art Scheidel here with us today. And the next driver that is here with us, he was out there somewhere. He drove car number 5. I do remember the name when I was a youngster going to Plainville Stadium. Jack Prow is here with us. How about a big round of applause for Jack? Come on up here, Jack. You were standing in the back there. You were being a little bit shy there, but that number 5 car, you owned the car, and you drove the car.
Correct. Built the car, owned it, drove it. I started in '66 with a novice car, the 96. I picked that number because when you're upside down, it still had the same number. Anyway, in '69, I built a modified, raced till '74. I really loved it, really. Rubbed some paint with this guy here over the years, and Jap and all the drivers, and really had a great time. As Eddie Mack said, the best part of racing was after the races were over, the crowd would go home. We'd all gather in front by the front gate, drink a lot of beer, and wait for Joe Tinty and his sister Monica, count all the money, we get paid off in cash. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore.
No.
Jack, certainly glad to have you here for the 3rd Annual Plainville Reunion. You're going to be signing autographs as well. And once again, glad you can make it.
Thanks to Don Moon for everything, all the work he does here.
Jack Prow joining us here today. So, Don, I guess I look at my watch, 20 after 1. Now, we apologize if there's any drivers that came in late and that were out there talking to different people and that were not to my right, or if you were a car owner and we did not call you on stage, we apologize, but I cannot be a mind reader and see everybody that is out there. You were supposed to be to my right. Yes, Mr. Lang, you have a question? Sherm Saunders. Is Sherm Saunders here? Drove the North End Auto Parts machine for the Burnt family, along with many other drivers. And Don? So once again, we do.
What about Elliott Beveridge?
Elliott Beveridge. I know Elliott's here because I saw him earlier. Where he is now, he could be over in the Berlin Agricultural Lions Museum looking at some of those great race cars or some of the great many pictures that Phil Hoyt has with us here today. But once again, congratulations to all the drivers and car owners that were here today. They're going to be signing autographs. Once again, if we missed anybody, we apologize, and we'll make sure that they get their plaques coming up a little bit later. So that is going to conclude the plaque presentation. Now it's time for the autographs, and we're going to do some question and answers with you, the race fans. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, we have Joe Salim with us, who's visiting the Plainville Stadium reunion. And tell me, what do you think, Joe?
I am just blown away. Plainville was, I think, the 2nd track I ever attended in my life. Got my license 2 days later, drove to Plainville after getting warned for speeding on I-84. Haven't been able to stay away from Plainville, and it's just such a wonderful thing that everybody chips in and has this wonderful event. And I'm going to try to be at every one from now on. But to meet the drivers and the spectators that I watched for years and the great camaraderie, I just can't say enough.
It's like coming home.
It is coming home. Although I live in Mooresville, my heart is always going to be in the Connecticut racing that I grew up on. That was Danbury and Plainville.
Yeah, I know that area, and you work for some interesting people.
Interesting, yeah. I would say that it definitely, that's one of the words you could use, and I absolutely love them. I work for Ray Everham. I do some writing and research and some photography for him, and he is a wonderful short track guy. And I didn't realize it until I met him and started to get to know him. He started in modifieds at Wall Stadium, and now we're researching modifieds. We purchased several, and we're just going to continue from there. It's just wonderful.
I'll tell you, it's amazing how many of these, professional drivers and race teams come from the modified ranks?
I would like to see more. I think they deserve such a chance at the big time, but we all know you have to bring a real heavy checkbook for a ride. That's just the way it is today because racing is so expensive.
Yeah, it's not like the old days, that's for sure.
It certainly changed a lot. Yes, sir. It cost a lot of money.
Well, we want to thank you for having a word with us and hope to see you here every year.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll be back. And I really want to thank my boss, Ray Everham, for donating some die-cast. And that makes me so happy. I feel like I'm giving something back to Plainville Stadium.
Well, we thank him for us, too, and we wish him well.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
what a wonderful
Joe.
day.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Yes, as we look at this novice-type car, which was actually driven by Buddy Krebs, I wanted to point out this absolutely gorgeous pavilion the Lions Club built this past summer. It has been just one outstanding day here to come and visit and have this event, and this building is really serving a lot of purposes. We're sure thankful that the Lions did build it, and it really helped out in a lot of ways. Yes, as we come to the conclusion of our show today, I hope everybody has enjoyed it as much as we have producing it. It has been one outstanding day here at the Berlin Fairgrounds at this Plainville Stadium reunion. It seems like this event is getting bigger and bigger, and more people are coming. You better save the date next year. This is always going to be the week after the Berlin Fair. And I also want to thank our crew cameraman, Billy Mctavish, for all the great work he does, and also Daniel Kahn, who helps us out, our intern. And I hope everybody will tune in next week on Racing Action Today. We want to thank PBF, Pryor Brothers Fabricating, for all their support and all the great things they do. And also we want to thank Just Results Weight Loss Center in Bristol, Connecticut, for all their support and all the great things they do. And last of all, we want to thank Mangelo's Wood-Fired Oven Pizza in Watertown for all the great things they do. Special thanks to the Racing Action Today crew, Dwayne Cody, Bill Majak, David Seidlinger, Lisa Backus, and Daniel Kahn. And also a special thanks to our home station, Nutmeg TV, for all their support.